No, but I hear it is in Arizona. Hey, everyone. Happy Monday. I hope you are getting geared up for a super fun weekend. Memorial Day weekend here in Alaska is kind of a big deal. Actually, I guess everywhere that I've lived, it was a pretty big deal. The first real holiday of the summer. I'm happy to say we helped our neighbors up on the lake get their docks in. So we plan on using their docks this coming weekend. That's how it works when you help with somebody, right? But anyway, really. I'm excited to have my pal with me, Dr. Brian Dooley. All of you know him. When you join us, give us a shout out. We always ask you to, and now I'm kind of saying, hey, let us know you're with us.
Now we're telling them to.
Boy, is it going to move into different times.
Exactly.
Hey, so Brian, you were at a philosophy event this weekend. What was that? Where was it? And tell us about it.
I was just outside of Chicago. So I was at O'Hare Airport, basically. Oh. And the philosophy event is the Diplomate in Philosophical Chiropractic Standards. So that's your DPHCS, which is a diplomate designation. So once you complete the course, then you get to put DPHCS initials after your name. And so this was module 2 of, I think, 9. And so I'll be taking them throughout the next year or two. Well, 2, really.
And is that every weekend?
No, thank God. No, so it's only about 9 of them. So I go about every other month is when I'll go. Oh. And so, but it was 18 hours of philosophy. So we were discussing all sorts of things. And then, so it's basically 18 hours every weekend that you go. You have some reading to do in between. Then there's just a big old test that we'll have to take to finally pass the class. But that's okay. It's better than writing a paper.
So that's so funny. You don't like writing?
I don't mind it, but in this case, the amount of time that you would have to do to research and all that type. So it's more of a time thing right now, busy as I am. So, I'm going to research anyway. Don't get me wrong. For the test, I'm going to be doing a lot of reading, but then I don't have to worry about doing other things. So I can just finish it up and be done. Yeah. So, I don't have to worry about, the citations and all that stuff. It's just a huge test. Yeah.
Right on. Hey, Crystal, welcome. Michael Tokac, thanks for joining us. And Dr. Sarah, welcome. So glad to see all of you. Hey, Sarah, drop in the comment section if it hasn't happened yet, that pediatric conference that you had asked me about in Michigan. If you drop it in here, then others can have that opportunity. So our topic today is, who needs chiropractic philosophy anyway?
Who needs it?
It's like chiropractic adjustment.
Right.
Who needs them?
Who needs them?
So I just have to tell all of you, the hardest people to convert many times are those that are closest to us, right? So yes. a little backstory. So my husband and I will have been married 10 years in December. And when we met, he had never been to a chiropractor before. Had 2 back surgeries, 2, I don't know, something like that. And, had been raised very much in the medical model of there's a pill for everything kind of thing. And so, he thought okay, you do chiropractic, that's nice, pat me on the head kind of thing, but wasn't really so much of a chiropractic fan. And so I just decided, I'm going to keep sharing. He sees my kids and I getting adjusted. Eventually he'll decide that, he wants to do it or he doesn't. And so my stance was always, when he would come up with a health challenge, to say, I hear there's a connection to the nervous system in that, because it's really true, right? So I'm proud to say he's been under regular chiropractic care now for quite a bit of time, I guess about a year. And he just had post films done. And Dr. Ryan Dahufsky here in Anchorage was like, dude, your spine is looking like $1 million. And now my husband is even on my case to make sure I'm staying consistent with my care. So woo woo. So excellent. I'm always saying that to everyone to encourage you, don't give up. Like, don't give up and just keep living the lifestyle and sharing little bits, as your life goes on, and then really and truly allowing your life to be the model, instead of your mouth just doing all of the talking. So chiropractic philosophy, who needs it and why?
Yeah, who needs it and why? Well, I mean, everybody has a philosophy, even those people that say, well, I don't have a philosophy. That is in and of itself a philosophy. But so it is. So we've all got one. So let's accept that. To your point, what about the, what is chiropractic philosophy? Well, that's why I'm taking this course. I mean, I'd highly recommend all people to delve into it. I think what happens is, it's laid out pretty good in the green books. And so if you don't know what green books are, just get online and put chiropractic green books. I would start with the chiropractic textbook, which, that's that's 1927. You'll probably get a 1940 edition, but that'll be okay. Start there and see what did the guys like BJ and DD, and I know DD died in 1913, but what did they think about how this intelligent machine, the human being, work? And it's really just fascinating stuff. And it's so far beyond a sore neck and a stiff back, if you will. It's igniting a nervous system and igniting a cycle of how, when the forces come into our body, and a force just is another word for a stress, when they come in, how our body's able to A, process it for our own benefit, or B, resist it and defend against its destructive tendencies. And so to me, that's kind of exciting. And, philosophy wise, if you go to the 5 branches, number one, well, I'm going to save number one, I guess I can do it. Well, there's aesthetics. That's not number one, but aesthetics is that's beauty. And so what is it about your office? Why do you pick the colors that you pick? Do you have open adjusting? Do you have closed adjusting? What other stuff is in the office? Is it all chiropractic posters? Do you have art? Do you have whatever it is? And there's really not a right or wrong. You've just got to decide, this is exactly what I want for my office. Are you going to see kids? Not see kids. If you are going to see kids, do you put family on your sign? Maybe, maybe not. Do you have family things that would, somebody comes in and says, oh, there's an area obviously that a bunch of kids are here, so maybe I'll bring my kids. Do you plug up the holes in the electric sockets in the windows so moms feel safe? If there's sharp heads at toddler height, sharp edges, at toddler height, do you soften those one way or another so that they're safe? That would be aesthetics. We've got our ethics. Where do the rules come from? And so the rules are going to come a lot of times from our states, but it's certainly going to come from our philosophy as well. This is what chiropractic is versus what it isn't. And I don't want to get into, if something isn't chiropractic, it's bad. I'm not saying that at all. It just is or it isn't. And then, we have our politics. So A, how we're ruling and governing with ourselves, but it's also how we deal with people. Do your patients call you doctor first name, doctor last name, doc, just first name, just last name, whatever it might be, and other different things. Then we have our metaphysics is going to be our reality of the world. And this is where chiropractic philosophy really comes in. Do you believe that there's a universal intelligence in all matter, continually giving to it its properties and actions, thus maintaining it in existence? And that's principle one. If we can't buy principle one as a deductive argument, we can't buy anything else below it. And so deduction is as valid as induction. Induction would be your typical random clinical trials, double-blinded studies, looking at something small and then make an assumption about the whole. Well, we're going to look at the whole and then come down to something small. So that would be deduction. They both have their strengths and they both have their weaknesses, but one's not more better. But most people scientifically will say, well, you have to do these double-blinded studies. But here's the thing. You can't have a true double-blinded study with the chiropractic adjustment. You and I could be in a study. I could be in the control group, or you could be in the control group, whatever it is. But you and I have very different bodies and very different nervous systems that are doing just different things. So there's nobody like me. There's nobody like you. So you really can't say that what happens to this person is going to be the same on that person. But we can, I think, deduce that the nervous system for me, as long as it's clear, is going to keep me as healthy as possible, just the same as the nervous system for you, as long as it's clear, will keep you as healthy as possible. So our philosophy is our why. It's why I go to Chicago and spend 18 hours when I could be home. It's why I drive an hour to Sherman College and teach, and drive an hour back and then go practice for 3 hours. It's why, we're late today because I'm waiting on a practice member to come in with some x-rays I wanted to see. It's what fills the tank, if you will. It not only fills the tank, but then it's also the buoys in the channel. I know you're a fisher person yourself, and you want to stay between the buoys, because on the outside of the buoys is where the danger is. And so our philosophy is our channel marker, if you will.
So let me Danielle and Joanne, thank you so much for joining us. Great to see you. All right, so let's go back to this one. You can't tell a true double-blind study concerning a chiropractic adjustment. And your basis for that was because no two bodies are the same. Right. So then really and truly, can we have a double-blind study on anything as it relates to the human body, whether it's is that something you guys discussed this weekend, that it came up right now, or is that just?
No, I think that's a reasonable question. That just because, the effects, that type of thing. The issue that's going to be the biggest with the double-blinded study, besides you and I being different, as a chiropractor, I'm going to know if I did something or not. And so it's hard, other than just sort of, teaching somebody who's not a chiropractor a certain hand position, that might be the way you could do a control, but it'd be awful hard to do. You could make an argument. We did have a double-blinded study when DD adjusted Harvey, because neither one of them knew what was going to happen. And so the way I look at it, we have a double-blinded study at work, so we're moving on.
There you go.
Ours was done in 1895.
It's always interesting to me when I was doing like a kind of like the Facebook scroll for a minute today, there was something that said evidence-based like birth community or something. Right. And it's like, I wonder what is this whole push, evidence-based this or evidence-based that? Like, I think if you really, and I think that Chestnut does a great job saying, okay, let's really look at the research behind this evidence-based stuff. And he specifically was talking about evidence-based as it relates to like the whole opioid epidemic, right? And if you go down to the evidence-based and you look at what the study is, it's kind of like a poll. The Gallup poll of 5 people in a population that's 100% Democrats, they said that Trump sucks or whatever. Like, okay, let's really look at what are they hoping this evidence or this poll produces, and is that the same way of evidence-based? So, and I'm not here to say we don't need evidence, we don't need research. That's not what I'm saying at all. But let's be diligent in what are we saying that the evidence produces. To me, the evidence is better. And what are your patients saying? What are your practice members saying? What are you finding? And how does that go back to, like what you said, our philosophy is our why. So what evidence are you using? Not just Brian, not just you who's watching, but as a society and within our practices, what philosophy are you using as a basis in your practice? And before we started, Brian and I was saying, as a Christian woman, one of the things that I see is that, our society was at one point based much more on biblical principles. Whether you agree with that or not, you can go back to the Constitution and have a look at it. Right. If you do or don't believe it, you can see evidence of that, right? And as we move away from it, now what we have is like man's philosophy, not just man as like gender man, but like human beings, our philosophies change all the time, right? So we have to have something concrete. And to me, that's why it's so important to go back to the basics and back to the roots of chiropractic, because I don't think we don't get to change that. And that really then impacts our chiropractic philosophy, because that's what it started with. Like, that is, in my opinion, what chiropractic is what it started with. What are your thoughts on how does what you guys talked about this weekend align with practice, and then with the philosophical, like not just talking, because what's the point of just talking among ourselves, but how do we bring that full circle?
Well, I think that's a real important part, because some of what we talked about this weekend, I mean, we stood around a big poster of the 33 principles, and we talked about deductively how we got from one to the next. Not just saying, all right, this is 1 through 33, and here's what they mean, but is it truly a deductive argument? Does one come from one or two from the one above? And so I think we proved that. I mean, and that would be one way, that's evidence. The issue about evidence is, what kind of evidence are you going to accept? I mean, if you come into a situation and just say, this is just what I think, and this is the only evidence that you're going to show me, I think you're limiting yourself. I mean, random double-blinded studies, that's stuff that people have been manipulating the data since there's been random double-blinded studies. And the funny thing is, I think the first one, I believe we heard this weekend, and I may be wrong on the date, I'll have to check it to be sure, was the first one regarding medicine was done in about the 1940s. So it's not like these things have been around that terribly long. So what were they doing before that? I think, there's that classic line that chiropractors use that medical treatments have passed the random double-blinded study, the RCT test, 15%. And now it's up to, I think, 18. They redid the study. So still less than 1 in 5 medical interventions have been proven by random clinical trials. That being said, observational evidence is also valid. So some of the things, when I watched my dad have to go through gallbladder surgery because his gallbladder was so bad, it had gone gangrenous and was close to getting to his liver, which if he did, then there's no more dad. So I was really grateful for the medical professionals, and I was grateful that they did laparoscopic surgery versus the old day, like gut you like a fish and take it out that way. Somebody laparoscopically says, you know what, this just looks like it would be a better idea. There's no random clinical trial for it. They didn't cut somebody and not take their gallbladder out. I think they call that butchery. So it's so, and I don't have a problem that, I trust that they're learned, smart people dealing with how to do surgery on the human frame. Well, we're learned, smart people as well in our line of work. And observational evidence is good. So if you go back to the major premise where it talks about universal intelligence, right, we can't measure that. It's in the immaterial. Okay, at least right now, nobody's developed something to say. And here's the thing, whenever the Krebs cycle was discovered in the 1950s or whatever it was, the Krebs cycle was working before then. Nobody had just, it was.
That's a great point.
So, yeah. And so universal intelligence, all that principle 1 says is you have intelligence, there's matter, it's in existence, there's organization there. If there's organization, there's intelligence behind it. I'm not talking deity intelligence, just intelligence. There's rules about what makes the universe. There's rules about what makes a planet. There's rules about what makes gravity and what makes orbits and those types of things. And so can we look around at the universe and say, is it organized? So for me, you can look at the stars in the sky. At first, it looks like they're haphazard, but the reason we can point out constellations is the stars stay in the same place in the sky. And they show up in the sky at the same time in the different seasons. Some season you see the Big Dipper, some seasons you don't see the Big Dipper. But the Big Dipper is coming around again when we hit that season again. We go to the beach and there's tide charts. We kind of know when the tides are going to hit. We know, on Earth how long a day is going to be. We know how long a year is going to be. We know how long it is on the other planets. It's mathematical equations, which to me demonstrate an extraordinary high level of organization. And if there's organization, there has to be some intelligence behind it. Chiropractically, we talk about it being a universal intelligence. Now, where universal intelligence comes from, that brings it into a theological discussion, and that's outside of chiropractic. We can certainly have it. I don't need to talk to my practice members about it. I'm just stopping at, if the universe is organized, then you, Mr. and Mrs. Practice member, you need to be organized as well. And then for us, us being people, the organizing factor is your innate intelligence operating above, over, and through the nervous system. So maybe it's a good idea that we keep that thing clear so you and I express the best possible versions of whoever we are.
Nice. So why have chiropractic philosophy? Why talk about chiropractic philosophy? Why have a practice that is strong in chiropractic philosophy starting from the doctor?
Because it's exactly what you said. That will give you the opportunity to have the strongest chiropractic practice. For me, to keep us separate and distinct, I don't want to be confused with the medical man, and I don't want to be confused with the religious man, because we've been accused of being a pseudo-religion at times. I don't want to be confused with massage therapists, which I have. I don't want to be confused with physical therapists, which I have. Chiropractic, to me, just stands on its own. At the end of the day, what are the 33 principles about? It's about the body works better with a proper nerve supply. I am comfortable delivering that to my patients and seeing amazing things happen. Are there symptomatic changes? There are. And we talk, some say, well, if you're straight chiropractor, you can't talk about symptoms. Who the hell says that? There's a whole green book on symptomology. And so it's okay to talk about it and understand what's going on. It's what we do with that information that either keeps it chiropractic or mushes it into another profession. For me, to keep us separate, we have a separate and distinct area of interest. And for me, it's the vertebral subluxation. Nobody else deals with it. Other people deal with musculoskeletal aches, pains, sore necks, whatever it is, but nobody deals with the subluxation, putting pressure on a nerve and interrupting the flow of the mental impulse. That's what we deal with. So then having a strong philosophy, well, why is that important to deal with it? And so that's where we have to come up. This is why it's important. All right, now I know why it's important. Well, what am I going to do about it? Now I do have to do some research. And again, that's not just RCTs, but observationally or other things to see, all right, are there changes that we're saying are actually happening? Do we know that, all right, we made the adjustment, they feel better, which happens an awful lot, but does that truly mean their nervous system's operating at a higher level? Well, those are things we need to find out. So that's where our research would be. And then, of course, the art is how skillful are we at it? And I think that, I used to think it was the philosophy that got lost. But now I'm not so sure that it's the art is the one that's underutilized, because I think people understand the philosophy, but then if they're a crappy analyzer or a crappy adjuster, they're not going to deliver the goods. They get frustrated, and it's easy to go outside the buoys and get some sort of a response because they can get paid that way. So if you're not getting a good response chiropractically, it's okay to say, let me reanalyze the spine. Let me go back over everything. Is there something I missed? We're human. And so, and the other side of it is, please practice your craft. That's why they call it a practice in the first place. And so we can be working on those things to become better. Because why am I going to do the research I'm going to do? Why am I going to work and practice and stay in the office late and all these things? It's that why that drives me. And for me, it's about locating, analyzing, correcting the vertebral subluxation, because I don't want subluxated people taking care of me outside of the office, driving down the street. I don't want them dealing with my kids. I would rather have, I would dare say the world's a pretty doggone subluxated place. And that's why we're in the condition that we're in. So
I love that you bring up the art of chiropractic. I want to go back one spot on those who've maybe either been told that no one wants to hear chiropractic philosophy, in which case I totally disagree with that. And I know that Ryan does too. And the proof of that would be, look at how there are factions even within medicine that are trying to adopt more of a holistic lifestyle, right? I mean, look at Deepak Chopra. He talks about universal intelligence, and yet he's not a chiropractor, and people gravitate to that. Look at just the volume of interest, whether it's podcasts or it's books or it's seminars talking about universal intelligence, innate intelligence, that they absolutely, your practice members do want to hear about it. And the fact that you can relate your chiropractic adjustments or their chiropractic care to innate intelligence really and truly elevates your status in their mind. It elevates your status because you're connecting a philosophy with what they're receiving, putting you light years ahead or head and shoulders above their medical doctor or another healthcare professional.
Right.
To that degree, let's say you're like, okay, yeah, I'm fine with talking about it, but I really just don't feel that confident in what I'm doing as a chiropractor. I got to give kudos to, I think it was Brandon at the Wealth Factory. It could have been Garrett when I was there. And they made this really interesting distinction. And I hope that this message is shared by everyone who's watching with another chiropractor, because it could be that they have become disenchanted. And many times it's that chiropractors aren't disenchanted with chiropractic. They're disenchanted with how they're doing it, but yet they say it's chiropractic just because they haven't made that distinction. So if you're not confident in, number one, I think your skills for analysis of determining, is someone subluxated? What is the severity and complexity of the subluxation complex that this person is presenting with today? And was I able to locate, analyze, and correct it? Like, if you don't know, it's so easy to become frustrated with yourself and with chiropractic practice when it's not chiropractic that did something wrong. It's not you or that person. It's just how you're doing it. And so truly becoming a craftsman with your technique. And maybe you're not doing a technique that aligns with you. That's okay. You can totally pick up and change. Like, I'm looking at Chelsea. Like, Chelsea totally changed her technique and went to TRT, and is loving practice. Well, plus boot camp now, but is loving practice on a different level than she was prior to, because now she's doing a technique that aligns with her and her message of chiropractic. I know you got stuff to go.
No, yeah. I mean, I think that's the important thing. The nice part about our philosophy is we do have some we have room for variety in how we practice. And so that's great. So find the technique that works for you, as long as it's locating, analyzing, correcting vertebral subluxations. Ideally, could you do research that says, in this case, this is the best way to do it? Sure. And we should all hope for that research. And also, here's where we get into trouble with, my technique's better than your technique. Well, it's because I'm doing it. But you adjust the way you do. You're going to be a better Barbara Eaton than I am, but I think I'll be a better the Dooley than you will. And we should celebrate that. But the, part of with the philosophy is people just don't know it. And so if people have read Green Books, they've read maybe the introduction to Stevenson's, and there's a lot of really good information. Is some of it dated? Yeah. But go see where it is or was, and then we can see now what kind of new information do we have that will strengthen it. I mean, and I'll say something heretical right now, but even the 33 principles, if the evidence shows up, whatever that evidence is, that we've got to alter them a little bit, then we should be okay to alter it. With the end goal at the end of the day that they say, hey, it would be better written this way, that we can be more clear about locating, analyzing, correcting subluxation. Because if that goes away, then you don't have a profession of chiropractic. Mm-hmm. And so it's great just to be the chiropractor. Now, the hard part about it is, we don't like to see our patients suffer, but sometimes them being in pain is completely appropriate for the moment, because they have damage that's done. But if we know that their spine is clear, and innate's flowing free and clear, then innate's on the case, and we have to trust and let it go. So sometimes I think there's an ego. Most of us got into the business, I would think, because we want to help folks. And what we have to realize, sometimes not putting a force in the spine is helping people the most. And what tells you got somebody, it's your kid laying on the table, got a fever, puking all over the place, and you feel like you just got to push on a bone somewhere. But if the indicators aren't there, it's your philosophy that says, I'm not going to push on it. I know how miserable this kid is, but I know his innate or her innate's going to get them through this. And then, yeah, you watch them and you be comfortable with them and all those other things in case something wacky happens. And then, or maybe check them in an hour, whatever it is. But, so I think it's our philosophy that says, you know what, Mr. Mrs. Practice Member Patient, you're good to go today, but I feel this, that, and the other. I'm sure you do, but it's, for me, putting a force in that doesn't need to be there, even though they might have short-term relief, long-term effects may not be good. And so that's what, for the philosophy for me, it's knowing when to adjust and when not to adjust.
Well, I think that philosophy comes front and center when it's ourselves who's hurting.
Yeah.
Right? Or having symptoms and we go get checked and our chiropractor says, hey, you're good, Bar. I'm like, whoa, time out. I'm like,
I'm not good.
Check me again.
Check it again. Bring somebody else in.
I think that's when our philosophy comes into play is like, what do we say to our chiropractor? And I go ahead.
No, totally. I mean, I thought about myself. You're awesome, Jim Chester. Yeah. I thought about it myself today. I got checked today, and I was pretty clear. And I've been checked before when I felt crummy, one way or another, a cold or a whatever. But what I've learned as I've gotten a bit older or a bit more mature in the philosophy is I actually still heal faster than the average bear, the average Yogi Bear, because when I get checked and I all right, I'm clear, even though I feel like garbage, I know innate's on the case. And what that feeling like garbage is, you need to go lay down there, big fella, and just lay down and let innate do its thing. And believe it or not, at the end of the day, I'm at more at peace. I'm comfortable. All right, I'm supposed to feel this way.
Right.
I'm okay with that. Again, do I love the feeling? No. But intellectually, I can say this is what my body's supposed to do. Innate's on the case. Let me put the head down and rest a little bit.
It's like our chiropractic isms are true for everyone except our own healing. It takes time. Okay, not right now. It's got to happen now. Right?
Yeah, it's got to happen. I got things to do. Right? But I mean, and that's the curse, I think, of Western society, as industrious as we are, but by its very nature of being industrious, we always feel like we got to be doing something. And so, if you're out there, you have a spouse and the spouse is down for the count, pick up the slack, and that's why it's not 50-50, it's 100-100. That 100 might be heavier on a given day, depending on what's going on. But pick up the slack and allow people to rest a bit. And just know it's not this, don't be a symptom chaser. There's a profession for that called medicine, and that's fine. When my dad had to have his gallbladder taken out, no toggle of the atlas was going to save where he was at that moment. Does his body work better unobstructed? Yeah, absolutely. But that being said, limitations of matter, he was so far gone, I wasn't going to have a dad in a hurry. So I'm kind of glad the medical man was there. And other things, people have had surgeries before. The straightest of the straights have had surgeries, and as long as they're appropriate, I'm fine with it. And the issue with that surgery is your body has to recover from that. And so don't you think it's still good to check people, because that's the best opportunity for them to recover. And so, I still want to check people's spines no matter what, if they're having other things done to them. You can do all you want, whatever you want to do for that symptom. But if you're going to take that intervention, which is a universal force, which is per principle 26, destructive to structural matter, well, then we better make sure that innate's on the case and able to assimilate it the best way possible, which is a sign of life, which is principle 18. Look at that. We've gone through like 3 or 4 of them today.
and Dooley and I have committed. I mean, you guys are never going to hear the end of us, because we like to hear each other talk. And really and truly, the truth be told, we like to hear ourselves talk the most, if you really wanted to know.
Naturally.
It's apparent.
But of course.
on camera. We are going to go back through once we hit 33 and maybe even a revisit of some of the other principles as they come up. We had that discussion when we were at Lyceum a few weeks ago of revisiting them as we've gone and had additional conversations or learned other things. And we invite you to participate in the conversation. Hey, Raisha, good to see you, girl. And Mark, awesome. Tiffany, nice to see you as well. And Jim Chester, yeah. Jim posted on his Facebook page the other day, who do you recommend to talk philosophy? So, of course, I had to mention you.
I appreciate it. I'll send you that $20.
Yeah, 20. It's. I thought my endorsement was a little more valuable than that. But anyway, hey, Richie Fort.
Oh, hey, I'm just faculty. I'm just the faculty.
Hey, so anyway, all of you, thank you so much for joining us. Dr. Brian, thanks for joining me. We hope all of you have a wonderful Memorial Day weekend. Be safe, have fun. Oh, I know what I was going to say about healing. Just a second.
Hey.
So our sermon yesterday at church, I can't even call him a sermon from Brian Cook, our pastor. He was talking about the importance of rest, right? That like, if you believe in Genesis and if you don't, it still happened. It's like chiropractic. It works whether you believe it or not. And to me, creation it's what happened whether you believe it or not. But on the seventh day, God rested. And so the whole conversation was about the Sabbath. And he said, the Sabbath was given to us as a day of rest, like just rest. And I was sitting there going, say what? Do what? Let it heal. Like, let your mind heal, let your body heal. Right. And I encourage all of you to really think about when you say those things to your practice members of healing takes time. Are you allowing that in your own life? Right. Like I had to really step back and just go, okay, like what is rest? Like rest is like really and truly just shutting down. And for me, rest doesn't include the television. It just means like, power down. Don't have to quite so hard.
Well, I think how many of us out there ever had the vacation was to get away from it, right? Or that's why you look so much towards the weekend, because I didn't have to go to this place. And I think with the concept of rest, good enough for the rest of us. But that being said, but what I like, and here is the thing. So I've had jobs in my life, maybe you haven't, but I have, where I was just a big old a-hole on Sunday because I knew Monday was coming. And so I certainly wasn't serving my wife. I wasn't serving my kids, but I wasn't serving myself, which was probably the lesson I had to learn the quickest. At all. And so, I wanted to, I can't wait to fry this place because my philosophy was weak where I didn't have any belief in what I was doing in those particular jobs. Now I have a profession where I feel pretty doggone strong about what I'm doing. I know that it's impacting humanity on a massive level. So, do I make as much money as I could as a teacher as I could in practice? No, probably not. But the way I look at it, let's 1,000 prowls, but since I've been at Sherman College, I think there have been, so it'll be my 6th year. So this will be my 11th graduation. And I think we're averaging right around 40 people. So I'm doing the math. Hang on. I got my calculator here. So if I've got my 40 people for 11 graduation, if up with 1,000 practice member files, I don't know if you could see it, but there's the number of people that
444,000.
And so with a paycheck, you drive a Porsche, God bless you. I drive a Ford Fusion, and I'm okay with that because for me, my philosophy says this is where I want to be. And the beauty about the chiropractic side of it is now when I take a vacation, I'm calling it less and less of a vacation and more of a holiday or maybe a celebration, because now what I'm doing is I'm recharging so that I can be better on Monday. Because what we do is physical. What we do takes a lot out of us if you put a lot into it, and that's appropriate. And so now my weekends are more days of rest. Maybe not this past weekend because that was 18 hours of talking heads, which was great. But that's where, and now like rest for me is going to like a Sherman Lyceum or going to Mile High or going to, I hadn't been to Cal Jam yet, but same deal. You're still resting because you're getting out of it, but you're still within that philosophy to where you come back energized and ready to go. And so I agree with you totally. And so rest is good for us, but how do you rest? And so is rest an escape or is rest a refueling? And because of where I am philosophically right now, I feel like rest is refueling the tank so that I can be better on Monday.
Absolutely. And rest allows us, I think, really and truly to live out part of our philosophy of healing takes time.
Right.
Whether it's mental healing or physical healing, that spiritual healing, it takes time. I think it's really interesting that the individuals that we see recognize that only 13% of the U.S. population reports feeling fulfilled in their job.
Right.
So they're exchanging time for a paycheck just to make it to the weekend. And
right.
If you think about that, like, how like empty really and truly our society is. I feel so blessed to like get up every day and be able to do what I do. Like I get the biggest kick out of it. And I do need to rest just like you. Like I pour a lot into what I do, probably just like all of you who are watching. Like we pour a lot into our practice members. Hopefully we pour a lot into our family, into our own personal life. And so taking that time to just rest and allow the body to heal and recharge as well, top, like this is definitely, I'll call myself out on this one. This is a tough one for me to talk about and to really live out, is just the importance of like meditation. Like I'm great at prayer, but just like I'm right. always talking instead of just like quieting myself and listening. And yet when you look at top performers, whether it's athletically or in the business world or whatever, all of them have a routine of meditation, of just being quiet and allowing your thoughts to kind of percolate and to get clarity. And so that's, to me, that's like part of the rest.
Yeah. I mean, I've noticed lately, and I'll have, I as I said earlier, I live an hour away from Sherman. So I have an hour up and an hour back. So what do you listen to on the radio? I can, at times I'll put podcasts, I'll put the radio on. But most of the time, I actually don't have anything on. And it just allows my brain to just process what it's gone through the previous few hours or getting ready for what it's going to go through. And it's very, I mean, other than driving up the flipping traffic in South Carolina is kind of crazy. The highways are nuts. But other than that, it's able to just, it's getting to be a meditatory type of thing for me, where it's just, I just like kind of just letting, let God in a bit and see what he's got in store. He helps figure solutions. If I just stop and think and rest my brain, then the scatter and chatter goes down. And then the situation, usually the solution to that usually presents itself. And you feel at peace with it. And so if you have to do something tough and challenging, then all right, it's going to stink, but I'm going to get through it because I know this is the right thing to do. Yeah,
absolutely. I feel like you sometimes like, hello, I have this figured out. Like you don't have to keep worrying about it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Driving, I always feel like it's a competition. Like whoever's in front of me, like that's the next car I have to beat.
It's not real healthy, Barbara, I gotta say.
My husband, he gets in the slow lane, and even if no one's in any of these lanes, he's just da 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 da, in and out of traffic. So
he's resting,
and that's what he says. Like he has to drive pretty hard in his job, and so he's like, the last thing I want to do is get behind the wheel and feel like I have to like drive hard there too. And I'm like, that's because you drive a big excursion and I have a racy car. It's just,
what are you going to do?
It has to be driven. If it doesn't smell hot when I park it, something's wrong. Hey, so all of you, I tried to say goodbye before, but this time it's going to be real because I actually got to hit the road to go get my adjustment. So thank you all for being with us. We really appreciate it. Lots of new faces today. So Josh Myers, welcome, welcome. Maria Delmar Cordero, thank you for joining us. Mark, Chelsea, Tiffany, Raisha, I think I said hi to many of you, but thank you so much for joining us. If you feel like this is of benefit to others, share it. It's pretty simple. Just click share, and we'll thank you for that when we see it happening. And I'm going to thank you in advance for doing it. So Brian, thanks for joining me tonight.
Thanks for having me along.
You're welcome. We'll see you all in 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.